So you're Will Wall,
I am.
producer, musician.
Yes.
Now, you as a producer, I don't know how many bands you do or how often you do the bands. When you're
A lot.
Well, when I first met you was when you were dealing with Filthy Sweet, and I know them personally because they started in my garage.
Hard to not know.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And it's funny because they do this annual party for free for our neighbors every year because it's annual, like I said. Because those guys had to listen to them every Wednesday and Sunday, right, whether they wanted to or not.
Right.
But actually, into the production thing, I am like, I was like really impressed with the whole process. I've never been really involved in the process. I had actually done a little production a long time ago, back in like the mid 1980s, with some bands on a 4-track reel-to-reel.
Yep.
And then you'd sit there and you'd mix the 4 tracks down to 1, and then you'd bust out a stereo version of that on something else, and then you'd sit there and pack all these tracks into that. Well, right now it's like you're able to do anything and then just bring your effects on board. It's cool to watch.
Yeah, it is. The workflow is insane, comparatively speaking, to what it used to be. I mean, my first experience recording something, I believe I was 12 or 13 years old, and I saved up my money for a long time, and I bought a Yamaha MT50 4-track cassette recorder.
Oh,
now,
yeah.
this was like early days of that. This was an $800 machine, okay, which I still have. It's still in my basement, and it still works, which is amazing. But I had that, and I had a DOD mixer that was 18 channels, and half of them worked. Okay, so, and that cost me like $300 used, from a generous Mike Schlenker. There was a lot of, and crappy mics.
Yep.
That was the early days of Musicians Friends catalogs.
Yep.
And they said, hey, buy this microphone, we'll give you 9 free. And it was just junk, but it was good enough for what we were doing. And I had to learn how to record on that, and ever since, I don't think I've been in a project where I've actually walked into a studio and just played my part and left. Everything I've ever done is been me, which, God, don't do that. If you're starting now and whatever, God, it is not the way to do it. There's in hindsight, I wish I wasn't so controlling kind of my own stuff, because then it wouldn't have forced me to learn how to do all this. And it is nice that you can just plug in and just go. Like for this was great, but it can be it can be a disadvantage too, because when it's your stuff, you're more like, no, let's do it again, let's do it again, let's do it again, let's do it again, because you're not on the clock paying somebody for their time to be there, and it's just sort of flex time that you can do whatever you want. So sometimes it can get bogged down pretty badly with overdubs and extra takes and just a maze of crap you have to sort through in order to find like one good solid take in there. So I've really gotten a long way from the Yamaha 4-track. I mean, this is great, and what's really funny is that I just get good at Pro Tools, and now everybody is like, screw Pro Tools, we want analog.
Right.
It's like, what the hell, guys? So I went out and picked up that AMEC board, and it's I know it well. I mean, this is what I kind of came up learning, analog mixers. So.
But why change? I mean, think about it. People right now are producing stuff in their basement using Pro Tools out of a digital board, just with the use of digital technology and the ability to not have to actually slice a piece of tape and splice the fucker back together in position. I had to do that before.
Yeah.
It's so much easier. People in their basements are producing stuff that is better than the giant studio shit of the 1980s.
Oh,
I mean, it's.
Oh yeah, I mean, if you want to talk about clarity and fullness and production value,
ability
and stuff,
to manipulate everything at the click of a mouse.
I mean, I need that in the computer. That's, I don't, and some good mics. That's basically what you need,
right?
And everything else could theoretically just sort of fall into place for you, which is cool. It is a renaissance, but unfortunately, the more accessible stuff gets, you also get more garbage. And if you have a lot of people that aren't experienced, or a lot of people that don't really have the fire for it, bog stuff down, and it kind of gets, old, and it's harder for the listener to swim through the crap to find something that they like. But at the same time, I mean, it opens the door for Filthy Sweet. It opens the door for people like us. It opens the door for people who actually do have a little bit of something to say, or
creativity, something new, something different.
I mean, and honestly, we were talking to the Volume 1 people, and they're like, how are you different? I'm like, we're not. That's a ridiculous question. I mean, in reality, we're not musically. We're not any different than anything that's ever happened before us. We just took a couple of things that we liked and schlocked it together, and here it is. I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of bands that reinvent the wheel from this point forward. I think it's going to be reinterpretations and reimaginings of things that have already happened, just in your own different blend. And I think a lot of bands around here, actually there's a couple bands in particular around here that are doing that well. So,
one that I have really been digging is Picard.
Yeah.
Holy shit. But, so what's the coolest stuff that you've been putting out? That you're impressed,
as far as who I've recorded?
Yeah, excluding, who you and I obviously know, yourself and Filthy Sweet. We don't have to discuss them, but I'm just curious as to who else you've been working with that has gone, you've gone, wow, this is kind of cool shit.
Sure. Well, the irony is, and the one thing you kind of realize as a producer, you say that word like such an arrogant jackass. I'm not a producer in the sense that I'm Steve Albini and whatever, but I'm a guy that can see the final product before it's done. Yeah. And I can go, okay, this is how we need to get there, and da-da-da. And that's something that I've developed over 20 years of just doing recordings. Yeah. Ironically, what you find out is you go see somebody live, and you're like, God, they're great, and then you go, hey, you should come by, you should record some stuff. There's a band called Distant Friends that, frankly, I was not impressed with at all live.
Yeah, I'm familiar with them.
And they came in and they recorded some songs, and I started to kind of mess with the mixes and play with them a little bit, and it finally got to the point, because when you have gear that is entry level, and you have stuff like that, and you're practicing in a garage, it's incredibly hard to hear what that actually sounds like, when the final product comes out, and you put out the final product and you're like, holy crap, that's not bad, and when you wade through all the noise and the stuff and whatever, it's like, oh, okay, here's what this is supposed to actually sound like, And I think one of the cool things is as somebody who records bands, is you hand the band that recording at the end of it, and they go, holy crap, we're not that good. But
then you would look them in the eye and go, I am.
Yeah, well, yeah. But when Chris was listening back to the Filthy Sweet mixes, he's like, God, we got to practice. Yeah. It was, and I think what it helped him do is realize, okay, this is what we can sound like. Yeah. And this is the end game now. For us, when we recorded these songs, there was 4 songs on this album that were not completely 100% done. And we had really no idea, because I always like to leave a little bit of loose end for just accidents to happen. When you record, and then you can tweak things and make parts really cool. There's some of my favorite parts in this album were like me listening back to the drum tracks and go, hey, what if we cut that off there and added this riff here, or something like that, and then you can kind of do some creative editing like that. But we didn't really have completed structure on some of this stuff, so when we're done with it, it's almost like we got to learn a new song. And when bands come in here and after they hear the final mix, they're like, oh, okay, so we need to turn this guitar down, we need to turn the bass drum up, we need to use this effect here, we need to use, I got to practice singing,
right.
You got to do that, so I think if nothing else, a good recording can actually make a band a lot better. And that's why I like doing some of this stuff. And bands that are, as far as some of the projects and stuff like that, there's a bunch. Kids with Boats was a great recording. I really had fun with those guys.
Awesome.
It's incredibly detailed. Man, I mean, when it came out, I was like, whoa, that's really a lot of... I mean, there was like 130 some odd tracks on a few of those songs. And
Wow.
you're going like, that's too many fucking tracks. But at the same time, you're like, okay, if I can figure out how to blend all this stuff together and mishmash it the appropriate way and make it sound the way they want.
Fits, yeah.
Yeah, and then there's pretty much, a three-piece punk band is going to be no problem.
Right.
So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's funny because one of the things that Filthy Sweet was saying after their session here was, "Oh, we're going to pull this shit off live."
Yeah.
They're not about using tracks.
Right.
Because the style of music they do is kind of Sex Pistols went to finishing school. It's got that raw thing going on, but it's still clean and put together.
Right.
So like when they would do Times of Trouble, it had so many guitar tracks in it, and then it has the acoustic guitar. They just opted to. It's almost rewritten just for live.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's kind of cool to see that because, and that's why I like to go see live shows anyway. I like to see something. I don't want to go and hear the CD. I went and saw Sheryl Crow years ago. Most boring show I ever saw in my life.
Yep.
But then right after that, Black Crowes came out and blew me away, and Blues Traveler.
Yeah, God, Blues Traveler was great.
Yeah, and those guys, do the same thing that the Dead started doing. There's not two shows 2 nights in a row that are even close to the same.
Yeah, right.
And,
Yep.
That's why I was always big fans of those types of bands. But that's why I go see live music. I don't go want to see the album, or I don't see the album be performed.
Well, and honestly,
unless it's Pink Floyd,
right? Better be note for note, fuckers.
Right?
No. Part of what is bugging me now about live music is not so much the introduction of laptops and turntables and whatever. It's more because when you're just sitting at home listening to it, it's fine.
Yeah.
If you're in the right mood, great. Problem is you go out and you pay your $5 cover and you go and you watch these bands, for lack of a better term, artists, whatever, and the guy's sitting on stage with a laptop and like an 18-key MIDI keyboard, and he's singing, and you're like, why the fuck am I here?
Yeah.
I mean, like, it is exactly the record. There's nothing interesting about it. Usually they don't care enough to bring a light show with them, at least.
Yeah.
There's nothing cool there at all, and it's just reduction of the same exact thing you've already heard. And I think that's where music is really becoming synthetic in a lot of ways, because the record companies have been putting bands together with just the same concept, only with live musicians for a long time now. Like they'll form these One Direction or NSYNC or even bands like The Used or whatever. Their record company goes, hey, we got a good singer, let's get a studio band around them and call it this.
Yeah.
And it comes out and it sounds like math. It sounds like it sounds way too perfect, and this is a lot of the problem I have with contemporary rock, mainstream contemporary rock, is that if you listen to the production value, it's too good.
Yeah,
way too good.
Oh yeah,
it sounds like like those double kick lines and stuff are just like. There's no fucking drummer in the world that can play double kick like. I'm sorry, it can't happen. You can't get a guy that's that good to the click, and there's not that many drummers that are that good to the click. You got Mike Portnoy, Neil Peart.
I was just going to say Portnoy.
Yeah, you got these guys. Yeah, they're not in your band. Okay, your guy drinks too much. There's no way that he's pulling off double kick lines like that way every single time. This is not happening. So, one thing that I like to do from the production standpoint, and what we did on this, and what we did with Filthy Sweet's album, and with any album I record, is I gotta hear mistakes.
Yes.
I gotta hear flaw. I gotta hear real. I gotta hear, artists will sit here and go, fuck, I really want to redo that. I'm like, yeah, but if you redo that, you're gonna lose that particular shrilliness on the end of that vocal line, or that's just great, or you're going to lose, the attitude in the guitar line if you redo it 40 times. If you think about it, if you do anything 40 times, you're going to be sick of doing it.
Well, it's funny that you say that, because the first time I met you, when you came up to the juke joint and you were listening to Filthy Sweet rehearse, and of course I'm going to bring up Filthy Sweet as a benchmark because that's how you and I know each other,
yeah.
and that's, you know,
I got no problem plugging them.
Frame of reference. They started playing Hate Train, and they stopped about 30 seconds in. They're like, God damn it, we're playing it too fast again. And I looked at you, and you were like, sounded cool, and I said, do you guys realize that you've never played that song at the tempo that you wrote it at? Right. So now that's the speed of the song. You didn't play it too fast. That's just the speed of the song now. That's just how it's going to be.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, a light went off, and you're like, we don't have to struggle with playing this slow.
No.
You know?
No, and see, I think part of that is as a musician, your ego is always a little bigger than your checkbook. So, I mean, you always go, yeah, well, you know, people are going to know. No, they're fucking not.
No,
I mean, like, come on here. I mean, you're not Metallica. If Metallica were to play Enter Sandman twice as fast, people will go, that was a pretty sweet rendition of Enter Sandman. That's all they would say. They wouldn't be like, those bastards played those songs. Yeah. They wouldn't care. I mean, it's your stuff, you know, and you should go with how you present it, and that's the best way to get it done.
Well, bands, when they cover people, they rewrite it. Why can't you rewrite your own shit?
Well, yeah.
Do it.
Yeah.
You know?
We do that all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, like, when, you know, songs that are on our first album from 6 years ago, Andrew and I are real sick of playing those songs sometimes. You know, sometimes we're not, sometimes we are.
Yeah.
And, you know, we go through it and we're like, let's screw with this song, you know, for this show, or screw with this song for that show. And there's always a little bit different, you know, different take on something. And, you know, God, for all the member changes that we've had in the last, you know, 2 years, 3 years, I mean, you get different stuff anyway out of different guys. So.
Yeah, but you have Joey Gunderson with the most amazing hair.
Yeah.
And the reason I say that is because, you know, it's very similar to mine.
It is awfully similar. Yes. It is very similar. Yeah, no, Joe was a nice pickup. He's
possibly my favorite drummer in the area. I mean,
yeah,
just because he's so diverse.
Yes,
he's not afraid to hit hard. He's not afraid to hit soft.
Right. Yep. He's very. I've never met a guy that actually practices. You know, I mean, we played on Friday night, and we had a pretty solid show. There was a couple parts that he was a little uncomfortable with, but he didn't. I mean, you wouldn't be able to tell.
Yeah,
we knew, but nobody would know, you know,
right,
unless I pointed it out. And he, for Saturday, we had to play again at the House of Rock, and he said, "Yeah, I went home and practiced for 3.5 hours." What the hell, man? Like, you know, okay.
Well, the guy's got like 11 drum kits.
Well, he's got like 15 drum kits.
Oh, yeah, see, I hadn't talked to him for a couple of years.
Yeah. He's you know, every time he shows up to a gig, he's got a different kit, different snare drum, different this, different that, different cymbals, different. It's like, geez, man. He's like me, only he's a drummer. You know, I've got too many guitars, too many amps, you know.
You say that like there's such a thing.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's one of those things where, you know, it's an addiction, but I don't really care. I mean, this is the coolest music store in town, right here.
It is.
You know, if Joe brought his kits in, I mean, good night, get out of Dodge.
Yeah.
You know, if Greg brought in half of his other basses, we'd be good. You know.
I like that one time when I had Joe with the guys that do Dress to Kill.
Yeah,
at the bar.
Steve and Joe, and yep.
And that was incredible because he brings in, I hadn't really seen a bass drum like that, a kick drum, that size being used. It almost looked like a joke. It's like a 24 or 26 inch diameter bass drum, and it was like
it's his Bonham kit, I think, that he brought in for that. It was a big Ludwig kit.
Yes.
Yep.
It was giant, and it was funny because usually guys are mixing off what the cymbals are going to do, especially in a room like mine.
Yeah, surely. Yep.
And Milo was mixing that show, so you can imagine how ear-shattering that was. It was so loud.
Yeah.
But he was mixing off the bass drum. That was the thing. I mean, that thing was so freaking loud. That show was actually a real Kiss concert. It was almost painful to listen to how loud it was, but it was so accurate on how they did it. I'd have to say I haven't seen any tribute band do the vocals of Paul Stanley like Stab.
Yeah.
When Stab does that, and then he does the whole Kiss Alive and Alive 2 banter in between the songs, I was like, yes, this shit is cool. And then the guys right next door here, Eddie Inc., opened that show.
Yep.
Somebody was asking me, who's going to open, Iron Maiden or Kiss? I'm like, think about it. What would really happen? You got 5'4" Gene Simmons involved.
Yeah, right. Mini Gene. Yeah, right.
Mini Gene there with Dave.
Yeah.
That was cool.
Yeah.
But I think we covered a lot of shit. I absolutely dig what you guys do. One of my favorites in the area, I'd have to say, I have a few favorites in the area, but they're all favored in a different area. Filthy Sweet because... But, no, I really like what they do because they do stuff that is kind of my cup of tea.
I think they're great. I think you hit it right on the head with Picard. They're very interesting.
Truth Before Treason excites me with their brand of metal that they
are freakishly good.
Yeah, I know.
And I saw them at Everybody's, and I'm a guitar guy, and I was sitting there, and I'm just kind of going like, how the fuck's he playing that and singing over the top of it?
Right.
I'm like, that's crazy. I mean, like, it's not like I haven't seen stuff like that before. I've never seen anything like that local.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, where it's like, dude lives...
Durand or...
Oliva or something like that, and I'm just going like... Holy shit!
Yeah, right in our backyard.
Yeah, where are these guys from? They're great.
Have you ever heard Clam Bucket?
No.
It's a joke song.
Okay.
When we're done with this, I actually put it on my show for April